To be able to build large ships like the destroyer, the submarine, the battleship, the base ship, and the storage ship, we need a dry dock. To make a dry dock, we need a large body of water that is next to a land. So for instance, over here near Thunderbolt. And if we press B to open our build menu and we go to the facilities tab, we can hover over the dry dock and we can see that in order to build it, we need 35 rare metals. So I have a truck here that has 15 rare metals. And if I press E to open it, I can grab one of the rare metals. That will go over my shoulder and I can use this and my hands to build the dry dock. So to do that, we press B, go to the facilities tab, select the dry dock. As soon as we do that, we can see that we get the blueprint of the dry dock underneath our mouse cursor. Also, our camera zoomed out quite a bit. To rotate the blueprint, we can simply hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse around. And we can see that it turns yellow when it is in a spot where it can be built. So to build it, we then press a left mouse button. That will place the blueprint. We walk up to the blueprint and with the rare metal over our shoulder, we left click and that will submit the rare metal into the blueprint. Another way could have been to bring a pallet containing rare metals and just using the V button to pick up rare metals from the pallet and then left clicking to put them into the blueprint, or alternatively use a small gauge, a flatbed cart, fill that with rare metals, drive it over here, place it next to the blueprint, hop on the back, left click to submit them all at once. Another way of doing it is bringing a truck full and a tumble box full of rare metals and just use that to build it. So we can come to the trailer, press simply a V to equip it from the trailer, and then a left click to submit it to the stockpile. Now that we submitted all the rare metals, we can see that the model changes to the fully built model. And if we press M to open the map, we can see that the icon appears as well. If we press E to open the dry dock menu, in the top left we can see the inventory of the dry dock, and in the bottom left the inventory of our backpack. We can also see that there are 4 options for 4 different ships. There is the base ship or the BMS Longhook. That will cost us 8 naval hull segments and 15 naval shell plating. We have the BMS Bluefin, that is the storage ship, which will cost us 25 naval hull segments and 25 naval shell plating. We have the Conqueror or the Destroyer, which will cost us 15 naval hull segments and 15 naval shell plating. And we have the Battleship, which will cost us 20 naval hull segments, 20 naval shell plating, and 4 naval turbine components. Below the production panel, we can see the actions panel. There is the submit loading area equipment, which can be used to submit the segments that are used to build the ships. There are the reserve for active squad and reserve for squad, reserve multiple, and refresh reservations and remove a reservation, which are not available to me because I am not in the squad that has this dry dock actively reserved. All the large ships that are built at a squad-locked dry dock will automatically be squad-locked to the squad that squad-locked the dry dock. There is the demolish button, which we are not going to use, but to which we will return later. I can disconnect the power. There is the flag as disruptive placement. There are the close and open lock icons, which will open and close the dry dock itself. There is the repair icon, with which we can repair our large ships health, armor, and subsystems, and there is the actions log and stockpile actions log. In the top right side, we see the stockpile, which holds the segments with which the ships are built. So that is the naval hull segments, the naval shell plating, and the naval turbine components. Below that is the status panel, which shows us how much power is consumed and how much is connected. And we see the progress bar for our current build. The dry dock needs to be provided with 10 megawatts of power in order to be able to operate. So let's build ourselves 2 diesel power plants so we can have a 10 megawatts of power. We will build a power pole to connect both diesel power plants to each other, and we then drag a power line from the power pole to the dry dock. We then come to the power pole, press E to open its menu, and in the actions panel, we click the reserve a multiple button. We select the toot squat, and after we click that, we can see that 4 structures have been reserved. This means that all these structures that are connected to the power pole through power lines are reserved structures. That is the 2 diesel power plants, the power pole itself, and the dry dock. If we are not happy with the placement of our dry dock and we are within 168 hours of building it, if we press E on the building and we go to the actions panel and we look at the demolish button, we can see that as the original builder and also being in the squad that actually squad claimed this dry dock, I am able to demolish the dry dock. So to do that, we simply click on the demolish button, and that will give us a pop-up, and after we are sure, we click the demolish button and that will take away our dry dock. You should be careful though, because this will cost you your 35 rare metals, because the rare metals are spawning inside the water somewhere over there. To get the segment for ships into the dry dock, we can hoist them off the flatbed train carts and put them onto the loading dock of the dry dock. If we do that, as soon as we drop it down, that will open up the menu of the dry dock. We can come to the actions panel and say submit a loading area equipment. And we can see when we did that, we increased the amount of naval shell plating that is inside the dry dock by 1. Just like armored vehicles in Foxhole, the large ships now have health points, armor, and subsystems. Armor is a rating that might deflect shots that are being fired at the large ship. Health points is the amount of health points the ship has before it gets destroyed. And the subsystems, for instance, are the turrets. This destroyer, for instance, has a disabled back turret, as we can see in the top left. To repair the health points, armor, and subsystems of our destroyer, we need to put it inside the dry dock. If we are maneuvering it into the dry dock, when we are close to the center of the dry dock, it will show us on our screen a distance to repair location. As soon as we get the distance to the repair location and down to 0, we can hop out of our driver's seat, climb onto the dry dock, and come to the building at the dry dock. If we then press E to open up the dry dock, we can see that in the actions panel there is a button with 2 crossed tools, and if we hover over it, we can see that this is the repair button that will repair our health pool, our armor, and our subsystems over time at the cost of 10 naval shell plating. To repair the ship, we have to be sure that the ship is at the repair spot, that the dry dock is closed, and that the ship is not anchored. We also need to be sure that at least 10 naval shell plating are in the stockpile of the dry dock. When we click the repair button, we can see that the dry dock changed to the dry state and that our destroyer is on top of the scaffolding. We can also see that currently we are not having enough power, so there is no progress in our repair process. So we have to turn on our extra diesel power station, and we come to our 2 cranes and turn the power off on the cranes. And if we now come back to the building on the dry dock, we can see that we have 10 megawatts of power of the 10 megawatts we need. When the repair process is done, we can see that our model looks like it is fully repaired, and we can see that our back turret is back into normal working order again. When we want to build a ship, we need to be sure that the dry dock is closed. So we come to the building over here, press E to open the menu and close the dock area. We can see that the walls of the dry dock come up. We also need to be sure that we have the necessary materials. So we open up the stockpile, and if we, for instance, want to make a destroyer, which is 15 naval hull segments and 15 naval shell plating, we need to be sure that it is in the stockpile. So we check the stockpile, and we have 15 naval hull segments and 15 naval shell plating. Moreover, we need to be sure that we have a 10 megawatts of power available. So we come to the power pole over here. We press E to open it up, and we can see we have 10 megawatts of power available and none is being used. So to start the production process, we can simply press E to open the dry dock menu. And in the production panel, we can left click on the destroyer, and that will start building the destroyer.